Greetings. Thank you for listening to the Nuanced Conversation podcast. My name is George Hurt. I am the curator and creator and host of this podcast. Nuanced Conversation is meant to be empathetic and meant to be intelligent, meant to be a conversation where we are prone to listen to one another and at the same time be nuanced in the respect of digging to not the black and white but the gray areas of particular subjects. All right, so thank you for coming to Nuanced Conversations. Before we get started, I need to swear you in.
Okay.
Here, if you can raise your right hand and say, "I swear to be intelligent, to be transparent, to listen, and empathetic in our conversation."
To listen and be empathetic in our conversation.
You just agree to it. You don't have to repeat after me. Just think of court.
Because you're going to do that? Is that what you're going to do in this conversation?
Of course, as the creator, curator, and host, I will definitely do that.
You should work hard on this. That's good. You should work hard.
Thanks for doing that.
Right.
I have special guest with us today, a dear Christian friend and brother beloved, also a classmate. And about time that you are viewing this, hopefully we are fellow doctors in ministry.
I hope so.
Of the Memphis Theological Seminary in Memphis, Tennessee. He is also a wonderful shepherd, outstanding preacher, and loving husband and father. And so we want to dive in knowing more about him. He plays a significant role in our historical National Baptist Convention, and we'll hopefully have a conversation about that. But just in general about the state of the church, preaching, and how can we impact the culture better. You're in Nashville, I'm in Los Angeles. What are the things that are working in the context of ministry? What are the things that are not? But before we get into all that, That's just an overview. How are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
Let me see how this goes. No,
I'm
doing good.
No, you're doing great if that's the standard.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you originally from? Much as you feel like comfortable sharing your family structure, your early days, and your journey into ministry and pastor.
Yeah, man. I'm Breonis Mitchell, 50 years old. I've been in Nashville my entire life. Born and raised there, baptized at Tabernacle Baptist Church, and then I went on to join a church called Watson Grove, and Pastor Goodwin, he licensed and ordained me. I think I was licensed in 91 and ordained in 93. I think that's what it's.
How old are you? How old were you?
18 and 22, I think, when I got ordained. Got called to my first church.
At 22?
Mm-hmm.
What church was that?
At Board Street Baptist Church in Nashville. And stayed there 3 years. And then left there and started Greater Grace. Stayed there 19 years. And then left Greater Grace in 2016 to take the church that I'm currently at right now, which is Mount Gilead Baptist Church. Married to Jaquita. We're looking at, we got married in 18. So we're on 6 years. It'll be 6 years this year of marriage, 2 kids in my prior marriage, which that ended with, the death of Keisha, died at the age of 40 of breast cancer. And my kids were, Brennan was 1 and BJ was 11 when she died. And so BJ is 21 now. Yeah.
11.
Yeah. And Brennan is 10, but he'll be 11 in June. So, currently serving as the chair of the board for National Baptist Convention USA Incorporated, member of the beloved Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, 100 Black Men of Middle Tennessee, and some other things. Chair of the board.
Yeah, you got a robust resume there for the people to know who we're dealing with here. But before we get into all those various things that are nuanced, tell us a little bit about growing up in Nashville, heart of the crack epidemic. Are you growing up in an inner city, suburban? What is life like? What is the role of church? What the role the church played in your early years of development?
Well, probably like everybody my age, if you 50, years old or older, you were raised as what we call a church baby. So, I don't know life outside of church, old school church, you know, before they went to 8 o'clock worships, 9:30 Sunday school, 11 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and then the evening worship. So I'm born and raised in the church. And of course, Nashville is a unique culture for church because it is the Bible Belt.
Mm-hmm.
So many denominations are headquartered in Tennessee. Particularly in Nashville, you have Southern Baptist Convention. You have, I think it's the Church of God. The original Church of God is there. You have National Baptist Convention, USA Incorporated is there. And so there's a lot of, denominations.
So your experience growing up is solely through the lenses of church.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's no rebel stories. There's
one or two, but you tell yours and I'll tell mine.
No. I will not do that.
I didn't have, my call to preach. I was arrested and it was in a jail. I told the Lord, if you get me out of here, I'll preach. And man,
arrested for what?
Theft, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Theft. I was arrested for theft and hanging out with some boys. I grew up. It was look. They called themselves, you'd have to know this back in the day. We called ourselves, what's it called? It was Edge Hill, Hillside.
Mm-hmm.
That was where I grew up in. And so, all that.
So y'all was like a hillside gang.
Yeah.
You're hanging out. You're still in clothes, shoes.
Man, we were stealing food on that particular day. We finna have a cookout.
Mm-hmm.
And so we took the grocery cart, it's all Bill Crooks. I don't know if Bill Crooks is even existing.
That's anymore. A grocery store. Okay.
Yeah, grocery store. Mm-hmm. Man, we took the grocery cart, you go through the hole, and you just throw everything in the cart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then when you get to the counter to pay, you get everything you need for a cookout.
So in your rough jail life, you're in jail, and everybody asks what you in for. I'm in for stealing groceries. And this, and it's so scary to you. You say to the guy, if you get me out of this, what could be 48 hours in jail and a ticket, I'll preach the gospel.
12 hours. yeah. But if you go back, I think I was 17, 18, that's almost 30 years ago. Murder wasn't like it is now. Crime was, we was just entering. I remember when I was pastoring Boyd Street in 93, 94, it was the first homicide that we had, like a kid getting shot on a street corner. That was the first time we heard of that in Nashville. And that was Jeremiah Warfield. I'll never forget him. I knew the family. I did his service, but so it wasn't.
Yeah, and that's unique for Nashville.
Yeah.
But you are having urban cities during this time that are engaging in regular violence. Heroin, and obviously crack comes into their drug lords. But Nashville was sort of insulated from that. Because of the heavy church influence.
Because it's just churches everywhere. It's just a church culture, and I think what affected the church culture was when we went through that. The baby, when teenagers started having kids. I think that was more of a pandemic for Nashville and an issue than crime was. And of course now teen pregnancy was, and of course now that is, totally flipped. But I mean, crime is, Nashville is not Memphis,
Okay.
Memphis is 48 hours. Memphis is, they shooting up each other right now and gangs. So Nashville doesn't, we have a gang unit. Man, I tell you, when I had Greater Grace, I remember one particular year, man, they had the Crips and the Bloods, and whichever way it went, the Crips killed one of the Bloods later, and I did his eulogy at the church. And then they retaliated. The next week, I do the other gang's eulogy. So that was like a Greater Grace. That was my first eye-opener that gangs really existed. But for me, for the most part, it's just been, addressing.
Nashville's known for church, but also known for country music. It's known for food.
Known for country music.
It's known for food as well.
Music City is not country. It's not called Music City for country music.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called Music City because it is the hub for all genres of music. Music Row is where you had, RCA, BMI,
What's RCA? What's BMI?
Those are, big labels back in the day. So, all of this housed on Music Row. So it's big on country music, but
Okay.
a lot of individuals would come into the city to do their overdubs and their remixes. They did that in Nashville.
So after your 12-hour stint in jail and
You're
for
not gonna let that go.
stealing food, no, you are accepting your call to preach. What's that journey like? Just tell us.
Yeah,
Did you
well,
you go to your pastor and tell him? And
man, and my pastor was Curtis Goodwin, the late Curtis Goodwin, and man, I'll never forget that morning. You get out. I'm sitting home at my mom's house. I really hear the Lord saying, "Preach." I really, and I knew it at a young age. If you ask people, that say, "Well, he was preaching at a young age, and he used to, preach to my nieces and my nephews, and preach to my little nieces' dolls and all that." So it was embedded in me. But on a serious note, that day, I remember coming to the church to Watson Grove, and I was just walking. And Reverend Goodwin pulled up and got out of his car and said, "You gonna do what the Lord wants you to do?" Like,
that's what he said to you.
Them old heads, with spirit, we're spirit driven.
What church was you at before Watson Grove?
Tabernacle.
So what age did you join Watson Grove?
I joined Watson Grove at 17.
17. And what made you switch churches?
So Watson Grove was the neighborhood church. Tabernacle was the neighborhood church too, but Tabernacle was more of the affluent church in the neighborhood. And Watson Grove, it was located right by the housing project. It's where everybody went.
Okay, so after your stint in jail, you say, "Hey, I need to leave the affluent church."
I left before then.
Okay, and why did you leave?
Because I was grown. Nothing deep. I've been born and raised in Tabernacle.
Your family stayed there, and you
my family
stayed.
Only I went to.
And only you went as a teenager.
Family still there. Grandmother died in 95 after I was pastor. Oldest mother in the church.
And what grew you there as a teenager?
To Watson Grove?
Yeah.
Just youth. I mean, they were just...
More youth.
Yeah.
Oriented.
I mean, you buy the housing project. So that's where everybody you go to school with, that's where they go. And then at Tabernacle, it was more of... It was, affluent, very rich in its traditions, rich in its hymns, rich in its... in its liturgy.
Pastor pulls up in the parking lot, asks you, "Are you going to preach?" You say what?
I said, "Yeah." And we went in the office. Goodwin talked to me. That was like the last Sunday in July. He gave me 30 days. I preached my first service September the 1st.
What was the name of the sermon?
Exodus 3. What a mighty God we serve. The whole narrative of Moses, on the backside of the desert. Obviously, I know more now, training, but I thought it was good. I closed it, man. You're going to laugh at this. So I closed, the Lord says, I said, do you still have your script of your first sermon?
I got it somewhere. It's
Somewhere.
handwritten. It's handwritten.
Mine
in a
is
notebook.
too. Yeah, mine's on plain white copy paper. Yeah. You should keep that. You need to find your manuscript. But anyway, I get to the end, man. I'm saying like, I am that I am. God be whatever you want to be. So this shows you how young I was. I said, he's like Campbell soup. He's good. You remember back in the day those rolling. Yeah. So I don't use none of that now, but it fit for the time. But yeah, so started preaching with Goodwin. I got to Board Street, which is interesting.
As pastor.
How
many years later? 3 years later? You said 22?
91, I started preaching. 93, Board Street College.
2 years. So
2 years
2
later.
years. So are you like the hot young preacher in Nashville? You're
so
preaching
in Nashville,
everywhere.
I was the first. Troy Hobart, a guy named Troy Hobart was the youngest. But we were all the young kids. Back in that day, it wasn't usual, common.
Are you going to graduate high school? But
I got out of DCA.
What's that?
Donaldson Christian Academy. So that's the high school I went to.
But did you go to college after that?
Yeah, Goodwin put me straight in American Baptist College.
Okay,
so I graduated, accepted my call. August, I'm at ABC.
How was life at ABC?
Man, I loved it. I met my closest friends because of that. Of course, it's not the ABC that it is now. But when I grew up, it was it was school for preachers. So I credit a lot of exposition and exegetical work to that ABC. With all due respect to what the school does now, but it was shared between NBC USA and Southern Baptist Convention, and so my preaching professor was Dr. Richard Lucas. New Testament was McCoy. My Greek professor was Gideon Olaleye. But yeah, I went straight to there.
And so while you're in school, you got called to the church.
Didn't get, man, crazy. True story. Boyd Street needed a speaker because the pastor got sick. Dr. Reverend Sprinkle was an older guy, and they called my pastor. They don't do it like that now, but Goodwin called me and was like, "Hey, man, they told you didn't get to ask. He said, "Hey, man," he said, "You going over to Boyd Street to preach this morning?" I was like, "Oh, okay, yes, sir." No car, so I had to drive his car over there to preach, and I go preach at Boyd Street. Yeah, it's a small church, sanctuary, may seat, 100 people. It's small. Just a little bit.
Still in existence today.
And so I came back to Watson Grove. And then November, he was like, he said, "Son, they want to know if I'll let you preach every Sunday till the older pastor could get well." So I went and I preached every Sunday in the month of November for 1 month for November. The old Springer came back. He was sick, and man, weird thing. I'm sitting in Reverend Goodwin's house downstairs. And me and him sitting there talking. Because, back in the day, it was something to hang with your pastor.
Oh, man.
That man, they don't like that no more.
Right.
It's about your peers now. But back in the day, if you could hang with your pastor, that
carry
was...
his bag,
oh, my
drive
God, man. I did all that.
Yeah.
Man, I had a pipe like him,
Yeah.
They had these big hats called Jew Baby hats. I still got one. Still got 3 or 4 of them. Just wanted to be like him. Carry his bag, drive him, all that stuff was big. And man, they did not call me when they voted for me to be the pastor. They called my pastor.
So you preached there for a month. The pastor came back.
Comes back. He retires in the business meeting on like the last week of December. I think it was like the 28th, 29th, something like that. He retires.
And they call you in.
And they vote that same night.
That same night.
He recommended me to be the pastor.
The retired pastor.
And
they called your pastor to let you know that.
Yeah, they didn't call me.
And he called you.
I was sitting next to him.
Oh, okay.
He said, "Yeah, you gonna pastor Boyd Street?" Like, yeah, I gotta get to say, "Yes, sir." And so I started New Year's Eve.
And so that's January. That's
93. They called me 94.
They called you in January. What made you start Greater Grace?
I left Boyd Street.
Why?
Street. Man, I was doing it. The church was growing, and obviously in church dynamics, I'm sure you know this, that when you pass a church that's got like 30, 40 members, it's family driven, and the church had grown, man, so crazy. I mean, Boyd Street was the hot topic. It was before Joseph Walker had just come to Mount Zion, so we were passing the same time in Nashville, and man, it was just my time to go. And I resigned on a Friday night.
The church is growing, and it's your time to go. That doesn't add up.
It does.
The church is growing.
Guess that's how you are.
The family, there's tension with the
family.
They
they were at a point where they really wanted to keep their small church.
Gotcha.
And I respected that. No knockout, drag out, no fight.
It was no fight at all. It was no.
They had my anniversary on Sunday. And I left on, we had a business meeting on Wednesday, and I presented like a plethora of things I wanted to do. And man, I'll never forget.
To those that are watching, plethora means a lot. Go ahead.
If you wasn't my friend, man, okay. I had a lot of things that I was presenting to the church.
Got you. Thank you.
And when I presented everything to the church, they was like, we're just not sure this is for us.
Right.
And so I dismissed the meeting on Wednesday. And then on Friday, man, I was sitting in the office and I asked the Lord for 2 things. One, I need somewhere to go if I'm going to leave. And then the second piece was, show me that if I get here, I'm never going to be able to turn this church. And man, I'm in this office and Reverend Sprinkle walked in. And he said, "Mitch, when
That's
you
the
get
retired pastor.
the retired pastor. He
Mhm.
said, Mitch, when you get stuck by a rose bush for so long, it don't hurt no more.
Hmm.
And he was telling me he had served at church years, 20-something years. He was telling me, if you have to get beat up, you get stuck so many times, you don't feel it no more. And I was like, well, that's the first thing. I ain't going for that. I'm not going to be the person where you sit here, you just get me. And believe it or not, I'm getting ready to go out into the meeting to address it. And Bishop Walker walked in. He was just Joseph Walker at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And we were best friends.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe walked in and he said he was going to preach at a church on Brick Church Pike. Remember all day long. He said, hey, man, if they put you out tonight, you can use my Zion. Well, he was worshiping in the World Center at that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was in the World Center at that time. And so I was like, okay, all right. And that was my second sign. And man, I went out, just told them, read my letter of resignation. I already had the letter of resignation, read it. Just told them, I felt like I was let me do something else. That's a Friday. Saturday, we got Bibles. We got putting programs together, choir rehearsal, everything going on in Mount Zion on Jefferson Street. And Sunday launch, Greater Grace.
How are you feeling at this point? Are you excited? Are you
Oh, yeah,
disappointed that it didn't work out there?
No, not
So
disappointed.
you was
Nah,
good
nah.
riddance type of
Not
feel.
really good riddance. It's just when you know it's time to go
Sounds
somewhere.
very harmonious for or something that's not usually.
Man, I left. This is true. I left in
Yeah.
April. I came back and did that revival.
Mm-hmm.
I've been back to preach eulogies for all of the key people in the church.
Yeah.
Still
That's
talk
a
to
unique
them.
story.
Yeah. So it wasn't, I mean, they love me. I love them. I was, just moving at a faster pace. And then, Greater Grace was unique. It was shown up at inner city church and I found it,
You started Greater Grace, so it's not unique. It's
my
it's a startup.
brainchild. Yeah.
Yeah. So
we started with about 300 members.
You started with about
first day.
300 members. You was meeting in Mount Zion. How's the journey going there? Is it growing steadily?
Steady growing.
Mm-hmm.
That the Greater Grace never slowed down.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, when you're a founding pastor, we went from Mount Zion to worshiping using the Church of God building.
Mm-hmm.
Worshiped there for some years. Had to leave there, and we went to a school. Left a school, went to the Max House Hotel. Max House Hotel, back to the original Church of God building. Finally bought a building.
How many years before you bought a building?
Man, I wish you wouldn't have asked me that. I'm not sure when we bought the building, but yeah.
What kind of building was it? Was it
church building? It was a Church of Christ.
No, I'm
building.
saying like, is it a sanctuary?
Yeah,
and
sanctuary.
Offices?
It's everything we need.
Is it a gym? Is it
no
school?
gym? It was just sanctuary,
office,
fellowship
classrooms,
classroom. Just a traditional church, Church of Christ. And so we bought that building and started out there. And then, so yeah, man, Greater Grace at its peak, we were doing like 4 services at its peak, moving, commercials, all of that. And I'm getting older.
What made you make the move to where you are now from Greater Grace?
Yeah, Keisha. When Keisha died, man. Because we had started that ministry together. So I got married in 95. I started Greater Grace in 96. So we had done everything together. And so when she got diagnosed with cancer in 2012, then Brenna was born in 2013, and then she died in 2014. When she died in 2014, man, it hurt, man. Man, having to go and sit, it was to the point, where I would have to come in and preach and leave. I'd preach on Sunday, cry all the way home. I'm raising a 1-year-old baby. I'm raising an 11-year-old child. And Mount Gilead becomes open. Honestly, I thought I was going to Shiloh Baptist Church in Fort Worth, Texas, because I preached with Dr. Chu. And February, I had preached for, April. The year before that, April, I had preached for Toland had left and went to fellowship. And so I had interviewed for them, and that just wasn't a fit for me. I felt like they really wanted me, but you're from Detroit. I don't do cold weather, man. I'm not
Okay.
that type guy. So I didn't want to go north.
Gotcha.
Shiloh was in Fort Worth. So February of 2016, I preached at Shiloh and at Mount Gilead. Shiloh the first Sunday, Mount Gilead the fourth Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Shiloh holds off on his vote. Mount Gilead's going to vote the first Sunday in April. And I'm preaching for Tolan in Warner Robins at the new location, and that's when they called and said it. But it was at ease for me.
They said that you had gotten the church.
I won the vote unanimously to be the pastor of that church, which is weird. Well, it was. So I grew up Mount Gilead before I bought the new location. Mount Gilead was at 901 Ackland, and our house where I'm born and raised in was 1014 Ackland. So about 8 houses up the street.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew the church well. Went to VBS there. Youth church and all that there. And then as pastor, as preacher, did all their youth revivals and all that. So I had been there sometime before. So, yeah, but I mean, I really didn't want to leave my members.
Right. Being
and when
in
you're
the
a
same
founding pastor, it's
city,
not that
founding
easy.
pastor, that's unique. Again, that's
Mhm.
unique.
And
so what happens
to
Greater
be
Grace?
honest, when Keisha died, I thought, and I say this, very transparent, I thought that the members, it would galvanize the members to, let's make this thing work. But I lost so many members. So many. They would call and say, Pastor, I just can't see you cry. It's not the same. Me being single was not the same, Man, it was one Sunday, a girl came to church. This is hilarious. Funny. But anyway, a girl came to church. I didn't know her from Adam's Rib, man. But they set her down because the church was packed. And the ushers made the mistake of sitting her down in the same seat Keisha used to sit in.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I couldn't preach any kind of sermon that day. I don't care what I would try. But and so I'm like, well, what happened? It's like, they think that's your girlfriend. I was like, I don't even know the girl. So, But it was hard, man, with Keisha, as, this church was us.
Mm-hmm.
She, that was my side, and so when Mount Gilead called, the blessing was because people knew, Greater Grace knew about Shiloh because I told them I was going to Shiloh. Mount Gilead, I think they really just thought he's going to go over there and preach. It's in the same city. Nobody thinking you're going to take a church in the same city because nobody does that, So I think they thought I was leaving to go to Shiloh.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I preached for Tolan the first Sunday, I come back to Mount Gilead. I call Mount Gilead and say, let's just try to keep it quiet. Let me try to figure this thing out. And I tell Greater Grace on the third Sunday
In April.
I tell them on the third Sunday that Mount Gilead is called, and I've prayerfully made the decision that I'm going to take the call. One is I was carrying that church financially.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't raise 2 kids and take care of a church too. And as a founding pastor, it falls on you,
Mm-hmm.
Because trustees can leave, people can leave, it falls on you.
Church membership had declined so much that you were the finances.
Yeah, it was down.
Did down.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it was down, tremendously down. Not the one I was accustomed to. And so, man, taking Mount Gilead was a win-win for everybody. I lost members in the transition. Those who said, because Mount Gilead was, it's an upscale,
So Greater Grace dissolves?
It did dissolve. I dissolved it.
You dissolved it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And some people came to Mount Gilead. So
I preached my last sermon at Greater Grace on the 4th Sunday in April. I started in Mount Gilead the first Sunday in May of 2016. And I guess that month, maybe about 700 joined.
Mm-hmm.
It was over 200 and something the first Sunday I went.
That joint.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it was at least that many. They joined the first Sunday I went. So I did that, and then, the rest is history with Mount Gilead.
Where did you meet your first wife?
We grew up in it. We went to Head Start. Kids growing up together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we knew each other our whole life.
When did y'all start dating?
We started dating. Let me see. I was 18. She was 17. So when I came to Watson Grove and joined, that's when we started dating.
You liked her the whole time?
Mm-hmm.
And she just didn't give you the time of day? Yeah.
No, that's the problems you have. That's why you're not married right now. You know, he that finds a wife finds a good thing. He
That's the
find a
Bible,
wife.
Reverend. That is the Bible. That
You
is
gotta
the
be
Bible.
looking though,
Yeah,
right?
that's the Bible. That's the Bible. As I was saying, this interviewer here. How long before y'all get married?
I met Keisha we started dating 91 when I started preaching, and we got married in 95. So we dated right at 5 years.
Right at 5 years.
5, 6 years, yeah. And then we got married in 95. December, Christmas
How
Day.
did y'all learn about her illness?
So I was preaching for, here he goes, Tolan again. I was preaching for Tolan at in Detroit at this church, New St. Paul. And I'm coming home, get off the airplane. They call and tell me that my Keisha and BJ only had one at that point. The day was in the car wreck. The car rolled over. It was a Yukon Denali, black, and they got her out. BJ made it out, so they survived. But when she started, so that was in November. So the end of November, she's like having some pains, and so I said, well, let's go check it out. So we go check it out. And December, like he wants me to have this say, he wants me to cry because this hurts to tell this, but I'm gonna laugh
not
through
at
it.
all.
But December, man, we go back to the doctor's office in December. And she says, well, we got some good news and some bad news. I'm like, okay, so what's the good news? The good news was, that we found out she was pregnant with Brennan. And we said, like, what's the bad news? She's like, stage 3B cancer. And it was like, wow. So Keisha and I made the decision to go through all of December, go through Christmas, go through New Year's, and we wouldn't tell nobody till New Year's. And so New Year's, we called the church in, told her mom and her dad, this is what the deal is. And so that was 2013. And then she had a double mastectomy in May, because David Wade preached that Sunday. Well, we went in for that. She had a double mastectomy in May, and then Brennan was born June.
She continued the pregnancy.
And
that was her choice.
That was her choice.
That was her choice.
I felt like if we wouldn't have continued the pregnancy, they probably could have hit her with some stronger chemo. But, had to have the chemo worried about the baby. In fact, when she had the double mastectomy, they had to have a NICU team in there at the same time, just in case something happened to the child. They could address it at that point. So,
what courage,
man! It was man. I don't wish that on nobody. So, she makes it out. We go through. Brenda's born. She's doing so good. And then September, Labor Day, we're having a cookout at the house. Man, her nose starts bleeding. I'm like, what is going on? And we go back, and they tell us that it has spread, and life expectancy a year. And we go through that, man. And actually, one of the chemo drugs you see on TV now, that's like that is a standard to fight it. She was going to be in the clinical trial, but her numbers didn't come out good. And I'll never forget, that was in May. We're going to hit the clinical trial. It's like the clinical trial may give us 5 years. So we're like, okay, and by that time it'd be another one. And she couldn't do the clinical trial. And I remember going to the doctor's office when he started to go down that road about hospice. And I said, no, we're not going to have that conversation, not in front of her. I said, well, we'll do, because the baby's birthday is coming up. I said, so we're not going to do that, man. I'm just distraught. And so we have Brenda's birthday on June the 8th. She makes it. She told me that she had told the Lord that she wanted to see the first year birthday. And she made me promise her that she wouldn't die in the hospital. She would die in our house, not in the hospital bed, in our bed. And so, man, I moved from May. I just stopped preaching. And I think that was an issue too at Greater Grace, because I stopped preaching.
Yeah.
I transitioned from being a pastor to being
a husband,
your husband, the caregiver. And so I'm there all of May, all of June. We get through Brenda's birthday. I never forget, June 29th. It was my grandmother's birthday that she died on. It was my pastor's anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
Choo Choo is there, supposed to be getting ready to preach.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it was like, because that year I preached, the Congress met in St. Louis. And I was supposed to preach in St. Louis with A. Lewis Patterson
Mm-hmm.
for late night. And I called and told him I wasn't gonna make it. And Keisha heard me say it, and she said, "No, you need to go, because that's your only strength. Go preach." And I went and preached. Choo Choo rode with me back, and we got back to Nashville that Friday. Saturday, she was turning, so
Mm-hmm.
people came to see her. And then that night, it was just us, and I'm holding in my hand. She's like, and I never forget, Bishop Walker told me, when you tell her you good, she gonna leave. And man, I know she was struggling to breathe at night, and I just grabbed her. I said, "Keisha, we're gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay." And I went to the bathroom, cried a little bit. You're in that house, man. And I came back in, and I lay back in the bed with her. And man, about about 4:35, her weight got heavy on me, and I leaned over, and she was gone, man. And yeah, she passed.
Somebody that's going through a similar event, what are the things that you would advise them to help go through something like that, if anything?
Man, you just got to you got to, we preach it, and we tell people, when you go through the valley of shadow of death, the Lord is with you. But I think my thing with people would be that there's no book on this.
There's no magic pill.
No, man. No.
There's no here's what you do. Here's 7 ways.
No, man. I mean, I failed so many times.
Mm-hmm.
Even raising the boys. And then people saying, and we'll talk about Jaquita, how I met her, but it's just hard, man. I mean, because you and I of that generation where you preach, they die, you keep preaching. You don't abandon that pulpit.
Yeah. In season and out of season.
Yeah.
And so,
but
the church, and I'm going on a sabbatical.
Mm-hmm.
Let's turn for a second there. We'll breathe. We'll come back here. That needs to breathe. Just the church, some of these unhealthy practices that we have as it relates to mental health, as it relates to pastors,
Mm-hmm.
Your church doing this incredible growth, you need time to raise your sons,
Mm-hmm.
to care for your wife. And I don't think there was maybe ill intentions to this reality, but there's not this ability to stabilize and be for you what you have been for people.
Yeah.
For what, 16 years?
16 years.
For people to step in financially, emotionally, socially, spiritually.
And you would think they would.
And you would think they would. Yeah. Is that par for the course? And we should accept it as pastors?
No, we shouldn't accept it. I think what you're doing with this retreat, I just think, man, and I'm preaching I'm preaching through the Gospel of Mark right now, and I'm in chapter 2, finally. And I'm dealing with the whole piece of the sermon I preached was old wine, new wine skins, and then the sermon coming up that I'm working on is where they get upset about him being the Lord of this. He says, "I'm the Lord of the Sabbath." Do you work on the Sabbath?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, make it reference in that passage to say that there's a whole lot of things we were born and raised as young preachers and taught as young preachers, that if we embrace that, we do that at the cost and sacrifice of our own life and our own happiness and our own mental stability. And in some cases, our own financial stability to be that pastor. I mean, man, I had members say, when I left and went to Mount Gilead, now remember, I'm in the same city.
Okay.
Greater Grace address is 901 Delbrook. Mount Gilead's address is 901 Ackland. Just change the name of the street. You're still 901, right? I have members come to me and say stuff like, "You abandoned us."
Mm-hmm.
You treat us like we feel like orphans. And man, that's just a culture, I think, in Black church that just expects us to be like those old heads?
Well, Jesus said, bear your cross. You knew when you signed up for this that, this is a life calling. Foxes has holes, birds of the air has nests, some man has where to lay his head. Why should you get all these luxuries? I mean, you get an annual day, your name is on the building. People always applaud when they say your name. I mean, all these perks. I mean, why couldn't you just suck it up?
Yeah, does the president of a company suck it up?
Mm.
Does the only president of the company, does a plumber suck it up? I mean, I just and I think I used to say this years ago, man. Erroneous interpretation leads to bad application, and I just think we grew up in a church that just had bad application and interpretation of the text.
Yeah.
For us, like. I know, like, if you preach it now, 2000s and 2020 and all that, historical context is, and understanding the social movements of the text is something they do now. But we weren't brought up in that.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk specifics and with some specificity to it. Boundaries, Sabbaths, teaching, delegation. You talked about teaching the word of God, application, interpretation. If you look at the life of Jesus, if you look at the life of Paul, I mean, before Paul starts a church, he's 3 years in isolation. Moses is 40 years in isolation. Jesus, who would lure away from the crowd and go to desolate places
consistently,
to pray, consistently finding himself in isolation. And we hear the running joke of how bad pastor kids are, and if she's a pastor's daughter, she's
pretty good. She's hot.
Just going to be hot and loose, and all of those things is not. There's a lack of intellect to say, well, why is that the case? What is the pressure? What is the pinpoints? What are the determining factors, if you will, that's causing these social outcomes? And we do that in every scope of life for everything except for
church.
The church, and specifically for pastors and their families. How do we break that cycle?
Yeah, man. I am, and I just referencing that Mark II piece for me. I talked the other week. Well, when I preached the other week about the new wineskin, I told him, man, I struggle in my tradition. Like, man, I struggle with, the bar stool, bar top tables that they use now, skirted. I struggle with an iPad up there because I'm traditionalist when it comes to some things.
You're talking about preaching when people are up there and they have
hoodies and suits, or those who wear ties and all that. It's so, you could be in an airplane and tell what name brand it is. We just
Gucci all
it's all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, man, but I said that to say, I'm learning now where I feel like I am becoming that church. I know it's weird.
That church is
the church that holds us to this standard, just like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like
I don't. What are you saying?
So the very people that I felt like, should have been there for me, and it felt like you're the pastor, you should be there, and you're the pastor, fox have holes, person, take up a cross, follow him.
Yeah.
Now I feel like I'm the one putting that conservative thought on the younger crowd.
Telling them to be more straight and narrow.
Get behind the podium.
Get you behind the podium.
Get your
hold your Bible in your hand. Hold your Bible in your hand. Don't be pulling out no iPad.
Put a Bible out.
Bonded Bible.
Get that old school Bible. You said I preached that last night.
Old too. Don't let it be too fresh.
Make sure you're reading it. Right. So man, take them Jordans off and take them Air Maxes off. Man, take them Timberlands off. Take that hoodie off. And I'm finding out now, man, as the older I get, and this would be a whole nother conversation for me, and maybe something even in our cohort with the brothers to discuss. Man, I am struggling now because I feel like And I felt this somewhat, when I preached the sermon last night, or the night for you. Man, there's a church evolving now that is not the hoop, not the suit, not the tie. And I'm struggling with that. Because if you look on social media, the churches that are growing and progressive,
Popular. Mm-hmm.
have that contemporary approach.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, I can name, the churches that are the big choir stands, when you go into the, the new psalmist, what is First Baptist Garden?
Oh, Glendora.
Those type churches, so. Yeah, man. I mean, that's not what we're talking about.
No, it is what we're talking about. So trying to find that delicate balance.
It is.
And trying to understand, like, there are things that are precious.
Mm-hmm.
And then our age is the weird age where you're too young to be old and too old to be young.
Yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah, and so you are pulling from these precious memories of the past and this desire to usher in a new regime that's sensitive and able to communicate with the different aspects of what is troubling this upcoming generation. And so when you hear anxiety and depression, and it's like, you want anxiety and depression, I can show you anxiety and depression, and let me take you back to the days when, and even
in the church, rebuke that devil.
I watched a news show I watch regularly, and he had his last spin. He does a commentation at the end, and it was on the fact that these young people, you want to. We pacified everybody. Everything is a disease, So if you got social anxiety disorder. If you don't have this, you got this disorder and this disorder. And at the end of the day, all of us are on the spectrum.
Right.
Blah 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 blah. But there is some real nuances to that. There's some real realities to that demands empathy. One of the things we talked about, and what this podcast is trying to be about, of being empathetic to the fact that I'm not growing up in these days and time. And so when I may have gotten in a fight and somebody got the best of me in a fight, the people knew that was in my class, maybe the school, but now you can go viral.
And everybody
can see it and know it. You used to compete with the cutest girl. The ladies would compete with the cutest girls, or the guys would compete with the coolest. Now you're competing because of social media, not just with the people in your immediate peer circle, but the hottest person on YouTube, the hottest person on social media, be it TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. And so it's such more complicated. It's different. And then every generation felt that about the previous generation. Just toughen up. You haven't been through. And we have a new generation.
I hear that all the time when I'm preaching. Jaquita's 15 years younger than me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So
the second wife.
The second wife is 15 years younger than me. The first wife was 1 year younger than me.
Okay.
But anyway, even with Jaquita, man, my piece with her is she is teaching me. She is teaching me. When I say teaching me, man, bruh, she is teaching me. Because I preach and say stuff. I remember when, or I make statements that confirm or affirm my generation, and she reminds me all the time, "Hey, you got me sitting here." So the other Sunday I was preaching the sermon. I said the other Sunday, I was using an illustration about, and I used Parliament and Confunction. And she was like, she said, that was good, but you lost us. And I just think we do have that. I think we just got a group. I think we live in a time where every generation, and now I'm feeling that, because I'm like, man, I remember the church where, I remember when drums was just in the Pentecostal church. Baptists wouldn't do drums.
Drums, you only did organ.
You only did organ and piano.
You wouldn't have no keyboard.
No keyboard. Certain songs they wouldn't sing.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm coming to the point, like, first Sundays for me is going to always be that.
I'm old enough to remember women in our church, women could wear pants.
Yeah. I know some churches right now that's still on that order, women not in the pulpit, you know. Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
and when we was talking today, I was on a call with the staff today, and they was getting ready for church, and it's like, well, you know, we found these T-shirts, you know, for the greeters and for the ushers. I was like,
T-shirts for the greeters. T-shirts.
Man, they can't put on the old
The
white
old uniform.
Yeah, the old white nurse looking like thing and usher and that, you know. But yeah, you
nurses,
know, yeah, you remember that? Ain't no nurses no more.
Nurses,
they just called 911. I remember. Yeah, I grew up in that church where they shout and fall out. You remember that?
Yeah, they have.
Man, they didn't call no ambulance. They go get that salt, put them back, keep going on.
They be packing on peppermints too, Doc.
Yeah,
nurses don't run out on peppermints.
Yep. You're right.
No, I think that's an important conversation to have and the interface. And I think if once we get to the convention, I think that's where the convention lost its savor. And I think we live over an illusion that the convention ever had a savor to it, a sweetness to it, a relevance to it. I when I study the convention now, and I have been studying it, my diagnosis is that the convention never had any relevance. It's just that it was more popular, and during its popularity, it never established certain things such as criteria for leadership, doctrinal lines of demarcation, and obviously, and no intelligent person can argue this, who may be watching this, economically, just highway robbery. And so we may want to bash the one person that we know that held that position that got in trouble. But if everybody was investigated, they'll probably be they'll have some shackles on them, as well as the very least.
Let me say this. You know, and you're going to an area that's sensitive for me because I serve.
Yeah, I got you.
As chairman of the board for the convention and the youngest serving chairman. And
yeah, you 50.
Yeah, man, and that's young.
And that's young in the convention.
That's young.
You young preacher, wait your turn.
I think I was. Let's see. I've been at 2 years. I was 49 when they first called me, and now I'm 50 now. I've done it 2 years, and man, I'll just be honest with you, man. Just you know, because a lot of guys are looking to me now and saying, well, you chair the board. Board, how you doing, brother chairman? You know, and I'm like, man, the convention is structured like the church. You know, the pastor or the president runs the convention. But one of the things I'm concerned about, and this is not applying to NBC USA, where I serve as chair, conventions as a whole, denominations as a whole. I think one of the things Kojics have taken a forward step is Drew. I think that, you know, he's not old, but he's not young.
Just say the whole name and what you mean by it.
Drew Shear, Bishop Shear.
As the president
Bishop
of
Shear,
the Church of God in Christ.
Bishop of the Church of God in Christ. The Church of God in Christ embraces a lot of stuff. You know, he's got Kiara, he's got Karen, you know, and you're seeing this.
His wife and his daughter, who are popular singers, the Clark sister. But here's the thing, though. He is building on a firm foundation.
He is.
The things that I'm saying the convention has never done, Church of God in Christ, even though there may be, even if you talk to some of them, I imagine they will have their own frustrations and criticisms and critiques of it. The foundation is so firm historically that someone can easily slide in and be creative. And as we are in the midst of an election here, and probably by the time this air, it may be over, it may not be over. Whoever wins is going on an uphill journey. It doesn't matter how talented and how gifted and how much resources they can bring. It is still going to be an uphill journey.
It's an uphill. I was going to say unless. There's no unless. It's an uphill journey regardless of what ships the new president will try to take or what turns he'll try to take. I mean, you're looking at something that in principle and in its practices is still standing on a tradition that is 140, 150 years old.
Yeah, I go there and I feel like sometimes I went into a time machine.
Yeah, Yeah. Yeah.
But you're the chair. I don't want to put you in an awkward position and go too much on that. I will say this, and I want to transition back to where we held off earlier. In your second wife in that season, and because and then this is not the rehash pain, but there's so many people benefit from going through those things. Again, the church, and as we talk about the church, and as we talk about nuances and realities of the church and how we can improve and how we can build on it, I think it's important in this conversation to establish that the church is the vehicle that God chose to save the world and to usher the world into salvation for those that are lost. Under that premise and under that knowledge, I just want people that are listening to know that when we say the things that we're saying it as a lover of the church, lovers of the convention, to be quite frank. I mean, and so I don't want anybody to listen to this and think that we on our Ty Tribbett. We're not on that. We're not on that. The church is whack and all this other stuff, and that's not to demean him either, because he has his own experiences, his own reasons for saying that. And I yet know not what those are, but what I will say and very clear of, with everything that you and I think you agree with this, that will say about our experiences that has been hurtful, about the strains, about the stresses, about the weaknesses, about the flaws, the best thing that ever happened to us
is the church.
And I would dare say the best thing that ever happened to the world.
Yeah, it's the church. Yeah. But back to that social. But we live in a time where social media has allowed people to say whatever they want to say. We may have thought that about the church, but we never would have said it publicly. And even when you go to the convention, we may have thought that the convention was dated or irrelevant, but we never put that stuff out. And now these younger preachers are just like, just.
What's the issue of infrastructure? It's the issue of the invisible. You talked about the popular churches that's on social media, the guy with the hoodie and the vest on. These are the popular churches, but if you dig into the infrastructure of them, a lot of them are personality driven, not all. And so if you take away that personality, if you take away those, what I would say, shallow dimensions that attract people, and you tear that away, you're not going to find the level of stability and longevity that
I think all churches are personality driven. Pastoral personality driven. That people, I think in this time, finding people who go with so many startups now. It is so many startups that it's hard to find people to just say, man, my grandmama went to First Baptist, my great grandmama went to they done left.
Absolutely.
And they down the street at River of Life. I'm just making up a name, but they at River of Life. They done left First Baptist River. Yeah. And they down at River of Life now, And so, I certainly agree with you there.
No, and I think about, you're right. And I think about this all the time in these quiet, introspective conversations with myself, how every governmental structure of church has a flaw to it. And what you're talking about is true. However we want to present ourselves, most people that attend our churches do it because there are certain personality quirks. It's not, and certain idiosyncrasies about one that attracts them to it. The catch to me is, I have to guard my heart and ensure that I'm not doing anything and you're not doing anything, and whoever, pastor, bishop, prophet, apostle, Joe Blow is not doing anything to accentuate that or allow that to go to my head or begin to utilize that for personal gain, be it financially,
they're not reading books on leadership. Popularity.
Yeah.
Like, I think the more you read books on leadership and understand paradigms of leadership and, methodologies of leadership, I think that's the only safeguard you got. Because if you out here just to be the preacher who can say it and who can, holler, preach, got a good voice. There's nothing to shade that, to keep that.
And not just that. That's tall. That's smooth.
Looks, yeah.
That's witty.
Yeah.
That's articulate. All of those things. And you think Steve Jobs was behind Apple. However, he structured it in a way that a Tim Cook could come along and take it to the next level.
Yeah, I was going to say that earlier, man. I want them to bring me back. My prayer is that they would bring me back to Mount Gilead to bury me. But I don't want Mount Gilead to bury me. You see what I'm saying? Man, I want to do this thing probably another 10 years. Give it all I got, and then, man, 62. Yeah, man, I'm ready to get on up out of here. And just enjoy life, and let the next guy come. Hopefully I built a church that's solid enough. I anticipate I will, that the next guy could come and be good to go. But I don't want, and it's back to what we was talking about a couple of minutes ago. That old school is just, you die the pastor. Man, I don't put, unless God forbid something happened, I'm the pastor and you got to bury me in a robe and all that. But
and for the sisters that's watching, the next person that comes behind you, next person,
not the next guy, next person. You can be a male or female. I'm very inclusive in terms of, do I believe God has called women to preach?
No, I know you are. I'm not even dealing if it is or if one is or is one not. I'm just saying. And that's another thing.
And I hope we have built a church, that understands how to hear the voice of God concerning who the one. But the point I was making was, man, I wanna roll up out of here. Don't you? Oh yeah. See, he wants to. You want to. No, you want to be 80 and 90 years old.
No, I'm with
up
you.
There talking. I don't even know the scriptures. They just up there talking. They talking about Horeb don't preach a day, guys.
Trust me, if I could retire tomorrow, I would.
I'm there too.
My only. I'm with you, 60, 62, all the way. No, 100%. Like, financially, I'm building myself that. This podcast is, because a lot of people say that, but they don't have no other.
They're not doing anything else.
So you say,
that's what me and my wife talking
we're
about.
We're not wired to just sit around and do nothing. No. You go either just take another church.
You got to have something that's already done. I'm like, yeah.
You got to have passion. So for me, I want to be able to do, 25, 25, 25. I thought through this. Great. I want to do nothing for 25% of the time. I want to preach 25% of the time. I want to consult 25% of the time. I want to write 25% of the time. So I've thought through this. Greatly. My only hesitation when I hear questions like that in your statement is this boss that we work for.
Man, let me say this. I hired Kenneth Dupree is now serving as my director of vision execution. Man, he's passed it 30-something years and he retired. So, man, a couple of months ago, one of the oldest members in my church, Miss Michelle, died. She was my 5th grade teacher. She was 94 when she died. 94. I think she might have been 96. But anyway, he gets up to give his remarks. He said, Miss Michelle says, I didn't know preachers could retire. And I say that to say, I think my boss, the Lord, Jesus Christ, has gifted me, especially you. I think you're gifted to that. Maybe that's that old school coming out of us. That preaching is not the only way God can use me in the years to come, and that I can use that. You said 25. I was sitting up there thinking, man, let me find mine 20% what I want to do.
No, and so I think what I would say is, if I did stay on past 62, I would want it to be structured. I would want it to. Hopefully it would be structured in a way that I would be more of a overseer type, a type role, and that it would be in a church structure and government that is able to not have a personality-centered component, And then I think what we don't talk about enough is the financial aspect of it.
Yeah.
And making sure that the church is stable enough. A lot of there's a wave of pastors are saying I'm retiring, and then they're still on salary. Sometimes 50, sometimes 100%.
Yeah.
And then it's lying in there that their wife gets it after that. And how do you build a church?
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
But in order to do that, there's things that I need to be doing now. And to make sure that the church is in a position that if they wanted to do an annual day for me or support.
Yeah, something I would like that to reflect on me.
Reflect, and you want to give and support, but that there's the 401k or 403b, as we call it for us, that's being put aside, that we're maxing out our IRAs, that we're having controlling rights and copyrights of our intellectual property. This is a company. This is
I'm going through that right
George
now,
Hurt presentation. This is not Mount Sinai. This content is mine. So everything you say, I own as curator and creator of this podcast. And so that type of conversations we're still not having in the African-American pastor circle. However, and then the other thing that we don't talk about is that we live sometimes a lavish lifestyle that's hard to turn away from.
Yeah. From
the tailored suits to the foreign cars to the watches. I don't look down on none of that. That's great if it's in your means and your mechanisms. But just like athletes, when that goes away, how are you affording that lifestyle, and should you be making sacrifices now that you can maybe do that later? And is that really your desire? Like I rather wear the same shoes and go to South of France.
So you sound like me. I like people like, man, you just don't order, you don't go shopping a lot. And I'd be like, when I'm out with, with the preachers at the convention and they doing that, I was like, man, I think I do a suit every 2 years or something like that. Because my deal is, man, I love when my family's in Cancun.
Go to the Laker game.
We do that. Yeah, we
I'd rather be able to run a ship, run a boat on the water and do that.
And man, give me, and that's why I was telling a preacher that was the other night, we were talking about shopping, right? And I was like, man, I don't dress conservative to say, I'm with the C.A.W. Clarks and in that genre, T.J. Jemison, that old school. I said, I do it because that's just other things I'd rather do with my money that are more meaningful to me.
I have a car that's nice, very expensive car.
Yes, you do. And yes, you do.
I don't want one every
year. Yeah,
I don't want any more because
you get one every year. But keep going.
But that's going to stop, or unless I'm find a way to leverage it to generate income.
You stop that.
Yeah, no, because you know what the return on investment is?
Zilch.
You get in the car saying, "Man, this is a nice car. That's my." It's like when Jesus says, "When you pray, go in your secret closet." Those who go, everybody say, "Look at him praying." Yeah. That's your reward right there. Yeah. And so. Those conversations we don't have. So if
man, let me say this to you, man.
Yeah.
When I got to my first car was a Cadillac, but when I got to Greater Grace, I remember that when I bought my first Mercedes. It was when the Bubble Eyes first. No, it was when
you got a Mercedes hat on.
It's 450. I do, but it's just it's the hat I got.
Yeah, I got you.
And I remember that. And I remember. So I was like, let me see, Greater Grace, 96, 97. So I'm driving a Benz 98, and I've had one every year. At one point in my family, I had the GL, the S, and man, it just came a point. I drive a Navigator. Now my wife still drives a foreign car, but it was just a point where I was just like, what, I could go get it, and I was like, man, do I go spend that money?
Yeah, that's Moser's book, The Psychology of Money, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, yeah.
These books, you understanding OPM, how to use other people's money, leveraging debt in a way you can't do that, even if you're making good money, if you're utilizing that money on things that don't depreciate in value, that doesn't actually create things. And so, like I said, this space is meant to be a space that allows to have those type of conversations, but not just have those type of conversations, but to model the fact that, hey, you can own a podcast, not just have a podcast. You can own a company that does other things in
well, I'm
in
gonna
area
take
of
this in
media.
front. We're trying to put one together, but I mean, wow, it's an interesting piece because and you gonna agree with this. We done messed up this next generation.
Oh man,
all they thinking about is Beamer, Benz,
social media,
Bentley, social media,
that.
Gucci, Louis.
All our brands, some of them even name themselves after these foreign brands that don't like us culturally.
It's
always interesting to hear the militant social justice black preacher wearing, though, but they have on their Gucci and their Louis, and they're wearing white supremacy as they speak against white supremacy, or they drove up here in that which is funded through white supremacy.
Right.
At the same time.
Yep.
We're not even going to get into the fact that most of them lack programming that does things that curate justice. Tell us about the season of grief and entering back into the dating game and ultimately remarrying.
So, Keisha's gone. Man, I'm raising these kids, and
how long were you in deep
grief,
mourning and grief for that? I know it's still.
I think sometimes you're
still in it. I'm just saying the deep, heart of it.
Man, and I value Jaquita because she gives me my space when I'm having those moments. Like she knows those dates. April 21st is Keisha's birthday. June 29th is when she died. December 25th, Christmas would have been my wedding anniversary. So, but I struggled because, man, I didn't want people, of course, girls were coming, ladies were coming, but trying to raise these two boys. And what stuck out with Jaquita, man, she wasn't church. And I met her at a church convention. Well, I was at Opryland Hotel. She was working in the registration because Derek Jackson is her goddad, who's over the executive director for the publishing board. So, man, she walks by and I'm like,
a lot of people, these names, you just be dropping them. They be like, God, I know him. Yeah. Go ahead. My apologies.
I'm going to try to finish my statement. So.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's your podcast. You did say you're the curator.
Creator and curator.
So, but anyway, because unless the time is about up. So let me just say this, man. So I see her. We go out and date. We go out on a date. Doc, she is anti-Breonis Mitchell. And it was like an ego thing for me. Like, do you know who I am? Yeah, I'm Breonis Mitchell. I preach everywhere,
Yeah.
Man,
sure do.
We went out, and I'll tell you what changed it for me. I'll never forget this. Two things. I met her in November of 2015, going into 2 years of Keisha being deceased. I'm going Christmas shopping, and I can't do it. And she texted me, "Hey, where you at?" I said, I'm going Christmas shopping. She said, "I'll go with you." And I was like, "Well, nah, something, I want to do with my kids." She said, "No, nothing like that. Let me just go with you." I'm trying to get clothes and pick out stuff for the kids, man. And that grief said, "Ugh." And man, I don't know how the Holy Spirit led her. And I do believe it was the Holy Spirit. But man, she just slid and said, "Hey, Brennan gonna like this. And I think BJ like this. Let's just get this. Never forget it." And she made that Christmas, and actually everything she chose,
they liked.
And she never took the credit. It's like, "Dad," because she wasn't around. I didn't bring her in front of my kids. I didn't do all that kind of stuff. Well, man, it's 2000. Let me see, 14, 15. I meet her at the end. 2016, Valentine's Day. Man, did they say the second year hurts? Man, the first year hurts, but the second year of death is brutal. I'm at Valentine's Day. I preach. It's on a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I come back home. I'd moved. I'm in an apartment. We're in a condo. And I'm sitting in the condo, man. Lights off. Valentine's Day. Me, BJ, and Brennan. And I'm just sitting there like, I ain't got nobody to invite with. And man, she knocked on the door. She said, "Can I come? I got something for you." And I was like, ugh, because I'm like, man, I ain't trying to, I ain't falling in love. She came in, she gave Brennan I'll never forget, she gave Brennan a basket for Valentine's Day. It was a Mickey Mouse thing. She gave BJ something, and then she gave me something. She handed it to me and turned around and left.
Mm. Mm.
And when she got to the door, I said, let me cook her something. And it was at that moment when I saw that she wasn't barging in, and she did it, man.
Mm.
And then when I found out, she was 15 years younger than me, I was going to have to work out and buy Pelotons and
stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
man.
stay in shape and stay young and stay healthy. And stay, baby.
Watch yourself, man.
No, that's real.
But she was there for me.
Yeah, she was there for you.
Dating. You talk about the dating, not me.
No.
I didn't do it that long, but
but dating and in that season, the space, the giftedness, the things of that nature. What other things do you think gave you the courage to love again?
I was lonely.
You was lonely?
Lonely.
Yeah.
And I, it might sound Freudian, but love is what we look for. Human acceptance,
Mm.
and I needed that. And then, being a preacher, I didn't want to be out here like, one of my friends. I didn't want to be out here, just, single, going, I just said I would not do that, and so I had to settle down quick. But let me say this, and Nashville culture is different.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Walker, I think what he do, 3 years?
I don't know.
It might have been 3-4 years for him too.
When you say I don't know these people, but you know them because you know everybody and you're big like that. But I just wanted to remind you when you said I'm not sure. So 3 years and he remarried. You had a social circle, social circle.
I had a social
of people in Nashville
that I listened to
that didn't stay single long,
right,
for various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Got you.
But it was, but I didn't, and the good part, I didn't marry Jaquita till after, I was, 15, 16, Mount Gilead calls me. We're just really starting to date.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still pastoring Mount Gilead single.
Mm-hmm.
Widow.
As a widow though.
As a widow.
Yeah, it's different.
I'm pastoring Mount Gilead as a widow. Jaquita's coming, but she's not, that I'm not public, that I'm dating anything till, I proposed to her in November 17, then we got married August of 18.
During the dating process, you never introduced her as my significant other, but she came to church but left.
Mm-hmm.
Got you.
Yeah. Because I wanted her to love Breonus, and I didn't want a woman to love me for status or, all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
And I didn't want the church to feel like this is it. What if it didn't work?
What if it didn't work out?
Yeah.
That's the
now I'm looking at somebody else, and now they like, well, I loved her, Don't bring nobody else around us, so it was cool. And I a lot of, my family and Jaquita's family knows this. I'll never forget, man, 2017, I proposed. So I got Thanksgiving at my house the next week.
Mm-hmm.
Man. So I've got Keisha's family coming.
Mm-hmm.
I've invited Jaquita's family and my family. And I'm like, And Keisha's mama did it for me. We getting around to pray, and I'm trying to introduce people, and I'm trying to introduce Jaquita to everybody. And Keisha's mom, Karen, said something to the point like, Bree, I'm fine, bless the food. And at that point, it was like, for everybody else who's not, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So she's been good. I'm working on a sermon right now, and I'm talking about with Jaquita. She is helping me not to become stuck in my ways because there are other ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What kind of preacher are you?
What you mean by that? Because when you ask questions, you mean I'm a hooper? Yes. What do
No,
you?
how would you if I was an alien and I came and you say I'm a preacher? Then how would you describe yourself?
I would describe myself as obviously an expository preacher.
What does expository preaching mean
Verse
to
by
you?
verse, stickler for the historical setting,
Mm-hmm.
stickler for that. But, the last 10 or 15 years,
Preaching that's kind of boring to you.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about preaching. Nothing like falling in love,
Yeah.
You go to the Bible, like, oh, man.
Yeah, jail life.
Yeah.
Talk about, preaching. Yeah, okay.
That's how he is.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's where we
I
at.
would say...
Don't cut that out. That needs to stay in. Thank you.
So we're gonna cut off dating life.
No, nothing's being cut. Especially you yarning about preaching.
No, seriously, I would say I'm.
So all those that invite him and the many places and conference, I just want y'all to see what we deal with.
Yeah, because I preached last night at an individual's church, and I really preached.
Yes, you did.
And then that individual, tried to keep me out, and I'm old. I like to go in.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
I got you in.
Yeah,
I got you in before 4.
Yeah, I was in that room by 12.
Yeah.
No, but seriously,
expository.
I think I'm
verse.
expository, but I am falling in love with narrative preaching now.
Mm-hmm.
Just sort of, we did in the cohort, just telling the story. I struggle trying to get these points.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes Kenyatta Gilbert said that in our class. You remember he said that you don't have to have points?
Right.
And I'm learning, but I think my church is so caught up on what's point 1, what's point 2, whether it's 1 point or 5 points. But I would just say I'm a preacher who takes seriously the craft. And I know that's going to sound weird because people consider preaching spiritual, just a spiritual task. But the craft of putting together sermons and using sermons to lead people to do something.
What preachers impacted you the most in your ministry?
Tim Glenn, obviously. Stephen Thurston would be another one. Ralph West, obviously, has impacted. Those would be my top 3. And then I would say in terms of just putting together sermons, I'll give you 2. It would be David Fleer. Man, and I need to say this. I know we're getting it down in time. But when Keisha died and I went back to finish my master's, my preaching professor was David Fleer. He's wrote a lot of books.
And where did you get your master's?
Lipscomb University, Nashville. And he revolutionized my preaching. Like, he was going through a season of, losing his son. I've lost my wife. And he revolutionized. I still have a sermon I had to live in that class, but he revolutionized my preaching. So I'll say about him. And then Joe Gregory. I would say in the last year, reading the works, Exodus preaching has really impacted me in terms of how
Kenyatta Gilbert.
Yeah, Kenyatta. That's it. I mean, everybody else I listen to, but I don't think they.
Who do you like to listen to? Who do you just like?
I like
listening to
in terms of peers.
Yeah,
I like to listen to Tolan. I like
Tolan Morgan.
I love to listen to, believe it or not, Brandon Jacobs. I like to listen to. I like Mark Moore.
Okay.
Philip Pointer. He would be another one.
Who do you not like? I'm just playing.
Our time is up. All right,
as relates to your concerns, if you will, about preaching, what would you say that would be?
Preachers knowing their own voice, or owning their own voice. Now when you go on social media, that rhythm preaching, everybody sounds the same. And sometimes you have to listen to it You know, like there's certain preachers you can put on, and in the first 10 seconds, you know who it is.
So when you say rhythm preaching, what do you mean?
Like that, how they move so quick in preaching now. You know, that quick rhythm preaching, you know. And they come out and they go back and they pick it up again. It's the way the preachers preach down, you know, and I enjoy it. But I think my thing is I just want this generation of preachers to find them and find their style. And, you know, last night when I preached or when I preach on Sunday, my style just works for me. And whether I have to hold the mic or the mic's on there, whether it's a high bar table, we're back at the beginning now, or whether it's a hood in that, I'm just at a point now, just let me be true to the text. And none of that can eliminate me being my authentic self.
Who's affected you pastoring?
Michael Lee Graves and Curtis Goodwin. Both of them are deceased. Bishop Graves pastored the Temple Church in Nashville. So he really mentored me. When I started Greater Grace, he was hands-on with that. In fact, Greater Grace Temple Community Church was named Temple because we were birthed out of the Temple Church. So, yeah.
Your go-to, we're wrapping up. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. What's your go-to food spot in Nashville?
My go-to food spot in Nashville. My wife would probably say Char.
And what's Char?
It's a nice upscale restaurant in Green Hills.
Of course it is. Yeah.
This guy right here. I don't know. What you like, Burger King, Chick-fil-A?
Hey, man, Waffle House and Cracker Barrel.
Hey, we went to the Waffle House the other night, me and my wife.
Yeah, man.
We was coming home and I was like, she was like, you know, what do you want to eat? I was like, you know what? If I get him, you know, smothered, covered. I mean, she's like, what? Yeah, like,
listen,
let me go over and let you show this Waffle House.
If I lived in the city with Waffle House, they would know me by name. I wouldn't have to order. When I was in Greensboro 3 days doing revival, and by the third day, it was, hey Chuck, what's up, big? yeah, got your grits ready. Like, yeah. So I see y'all next year.
Nashville's coming up in food, so it's too many to name.
Nashville's great in food, man. Well, you're an amazing preacher.
Thank you,
you're an amazing
George.
pastor. You're an amazing person, and we're grateful to know you amidst of so many people that you know and all the things that you do. For the kingdom, we're looking forward to deepening this fellowship and conversation as we work on our different dissertations, and we got ideas and thoughts about that. Tell us where people can find the church.
They can find me in Nashville at Mount Gilead Baptist Church, 4004 Lebanon Pike, Hermitage, Tennessee, 37076. Online, mgileadchurch.org, or my personal site, Breonis Mitchell, Breonus Mitchell.org. YouTube, Facebook, all that stuff is Breonus.
What's the meaning of your name, Breonus? Is that?
I don't know. Never knew that.
Okay, just something.
I'm sure you can find it out.
No. It's
so full of wisdom. I mean, I'm sure.
No. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to Nuanced Conversations, where we aim to be intelligent, empathetic, to listen, and to, at the same time, make sure that we're being transparent. Make sure you check us out on all of our digital platforms, and look out for our next episode next week as we continue our pursuit to have conversations that are nuanced.